All right, everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're tackling the fascinating world of flow states in athletes.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Me too. We've got this awesome article by Tuck Taylor, a mental performance coach, called Unlocking Flow States in Athletes. And we're going to try to break down, how athletes can train their minds to reach those peak performance
Those
moments.
magical zones.
Exactly. So, are you ready to unlock your inner athlete?
I am. Let's do it.
Okay, great. So, Tuck Taylor starts off by talking about these two key brain systems at play: the multiple demand system, or the MD system, and then there's the default mode network, or DMN.
Right.
Now, I've got to admit, whenever I hear brain stuff, my ears perk up.
Mine too. It's amazing what we're learning about how our minds work.
Right, so let's break this down. What are these systems all about?
Okay, so imagine the MD system as like your brain's mission control for anything that's, complex. So when an athlete is in that flow state, hitting every shot, making every play, this system is what's firing on all cylinders. It helps them break down all those complex movements and strategies into more manageable pieces.
So they're not getting bogged down by the pressure of the big game. They're focusing on each pass, each play.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, there's the DMN. Think of this one as that inner critic voice in your brain. It's that voice that pops up when you're, overthinking, worrying, or feeling self-conscious. That voice that says, what if I mess up? Or everyone's watching me.
Oh, yeah. I know that voice very well.
Oh, we all do. The interesting thing is, during flow states, that DMN activity actually goes down, which is what allows for that feeling of total immersion and focus.
That makes sense. When you're in the zone, you're not second guessing yourself.
Right. And that's where things get really interesting. Tuck Taylor talks about this surprising role of curiosity in reaching these flow states.
Curiosity, I always thought it was all about intense training, visualization, all that.
Yeah, all those things are important, but curiosity adds, like this whole other crucial mental layer. See, when athletes are curious, they're not just fixated on the outcome, like winning or losing.
So instead of I have to win, it's more like, I wonder what I can learn from this.
Exactly. It's about the process, the journey, the exploration. And when you shift your mindset like that, it takes the pressure off and lets athletes approach challenges with more openness, maybe even excitement.
So it's almost like turning competition into a game, a puzzle to solve.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Embracing the challenge, seeing what's possible. And this all ties back to those brain systems we were talking about. By shifting their focus away from the outcome to the process, athletes can quiet down that inner critic, that DMN, and open themselves up to those flow states.
Okay, I get that. But how does curiosity actually affect the brain, the body? Is it just a mental thing?
Well, that's the amazing part. It's not just mental. It's physiological, too. Studies have actually shown that curiosity can improve blood flow, reduce muscle tension, and even boost confidence.
So our brains actually reward us for being curious. That's wild.
It is. When athletes embrace curiosity, their brains release all those feel-good chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, endorphins.
Like their brains are saying, hey, this is interesting. Let's get ready to learn and perform.
Exactly. And then that creates a positive feedback loop that fuels their motivation and just their enjoyment of the whole process. Which brings us to another key element for achieving flow: process-based thinking.
Process-based thinking. Okay, break that down for me. What is that and why is it so important?
So process-based thinking is all about breaking down performance into smaller, more manageable steps. So instead of getting overwhelmed by the thought of winning an entire competition, athletes focus on the specific actions that they can control.
So instead of I have to win the championship, it's more like, okay, what's the next step I need to take right now? What can I control in this moment?
You got it. The article gives some great examples, like basketball player focusing on sprinting back on defense, anticipating their opponent's next move, or communicating well with their teammates.
These are all things that they can control right then and there, regardless of the overall game outcome.
Right. And that's where the power of process-based thinking really lies. By focusing on the process, athletes stay present, engaged, which is essential for entering that flow state. And as they master each little step, they build momentum and experience those mini wins that fuel their motivation to keep going.
It's like building a house brick by brick, right? Instead of trying to build the whole thing all at once.
Perfect analogy. And when you combine process-based thinking with that curiosity we talked about, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, tell me more. How do curiosity and process-based thinking actually work together to unlock those flow states?
Well, think of it this way. Curiosity fuels the exploration, keeps the athlete engaged, while the process-based thinking provides the structure and focus to channel all that energy effectively. It's like having a powerful engine and a skilled driver working together to navigate a challenging course.
So it's not just about being curious, it's about being strategically curious.
Exactly. There's a method to it all. These two mental approaches work together to activate that mission control part of the brain, the MD system, which we talked about earlier. And research has actually linked increased MD system activity to being in a flow state.
So there's a real scientific basis for all of this. It's not just some magical ability or something.
That's right. And the article goes even further, describing a specific training approach to help athletes actually cultivate these skills and tap into flow states more consistently.
Wow, this is fascinating. I'm starting to see how this goes way beyond just physical training. It's like training your mind to create those perfect conditions for flow. So what is this training approach? How can athletes actually put all this into practice?
Well, Tuck Taylor's company, it's called NeuroBeast. They've developed this program that's designed specifically to help athletes hit that peak performance through something they call cognitive motor dual task training.
Cognitive motor dual task training. Sounds pretty intense. What does that even involve?
Basically, it's all about pushing athletes outside of their comfort zones, but doing it in a supportive and structured way. So the drills, they're designed to challenge, both their physical and cognitive abilities, and they do it at the same time.
So they're not just running drills on autopilot, right? They have to think critically, make decisions, react to stuff, all while they're performing at a high physical level.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine like a basketball player, right?
Yeah.
They're dribbling through all these obstacles, but at the same time, they have to solve math problems or remember a sequence of patterns.
Whoa, that's like a mental workout on top of the physical one. I can see how that would be valuable for developing focus and mental agility.
It is. This kind of training helps athletes develop that mental flexibility, the adaptability they need to really thrive in those high-pressure moments when flow is super crucial.
It's like training your brain to stay calm and focused, even when everything around you is chaotic. When the pressure's on, the crowd's going crazy.
Precisely. And by creating this challenging but supportive environment, NeuroBeast training really helps athletes develop that trust in their own abilities.
That trust that we were talking about earlier, it's like a key ingredient for unlocking flow, right?
Yeah.
Because it allows athletes to let go of the self-doubt and just perform.
Exactly. It's about building that unshakable belief in themselves, their ability to handle whatever gets thrown at them.
This is all starting to come together now. So we've got the curiosity that's driving the exploration, process-based thinking that provides that structure, and then the specialized training that pushes athletes to their limits and helps them build that confidence.
And remember, all of this is working hand in hand with those brain systems we talked about before, activating the MD system and quieting down the DMN, the inner critic.
Right. It's not just about willpower or some magical ability. There's real science behind achieving flow states, and athletes can actually train their brains to get there.
Exactly. And here's what's really cool. These principles aren't just for athletes. Anyone can benefit from, being curious, embracing process-based thinking, pushing themselves outside their comfort zone, but in a supportive environment.
That's such a great point. I've always struggled with overthinking, especially when I'm working on a big project or facing a challenge. But that idea of quieting the DMN, that inner critic, through curiosity, that really resonates with me.
Yeah, I can see how that would be powerful. It's about switching your focus from being afraid of failure to the excitement of, what you might discover.
And I love the idea of using process-based thinking to break down big, overwhelming tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. Like you said before, building a house brick by brick.
Exactly. Taking it one step at a time, focusing on what you can control in that moment, and just trusting the process.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I'm honestly feeling inspired to embrace my own curiosity and tackle challenges with a fresh perspective.
That's awesome to hear. So what stands out to you the most from everything we've talked about today?
For me, it's that surprising role of curiosity. I never really thought about it as such a powerful tool for reaching, peak performance. But it makes so much sense now. That sense of wonder, exploration, that can unlock so much potential and help us get out of our own way.
It's a total game changer.
Yeah.
And when you combine that with the structure of process-based thinking and those confidence-boosting effects of, the specialized training, you've got a recipe for success really in any field.
It's kind of funny. We often think of these flow states as being almost mystical, something that just happens out of the blue. But what I found fascinating about this article is the idea that we can actually cultivate them. Like we're not just at the mercy of chance or something.
Right. It's all about understanding how it works, the strategies, and then, putting in the work. Kind of like learning an instrument. You don't just wake up one day knowing how to play. It takes practice and the right guidance.
That's a great analogy. And just like with music, the more you practice those flow-inducing skills, the more natural it becomes.
Right. Exactly. And the cool thing is that it's like an ongoing journey. You don't achieve flow once and you're done. It's this constant process of cultivating the right mindset, refining your process, and pushing yourself.
So it's this continuous cycle, always learning and experimenting and refining, just like athletes who are always training to improve.
Yeah, exactly. The more you practice those principles, the easier it gets to access those flow states, tap into that full potential.
Well, this deep dive has given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling inspired too. Like we've unlocked some secret to peak performance.
I hope so. Whether you're an athlete or just trying to, level up in any area of life, just remember the key takeaways. Cultivate that curiosity, embrace process-based thinking, and don't shy away from challenging yourself, but in a supportive way. Those are the ingredients for unlocking those flow states.
Great advice. And for anyone who wants to learn more about that specialized training for athletes, Tuck Taylor's company, NeuroBeast, sounds like a great resource. Listeners can find their contact info in the article.
Yeah, they're doing really interesting work in mental performance.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into flow states. I feel energized and ready to, take on the world.
Me too. It's always inspiring to dive into the power of our minds and realize, hey, we're capable of so much more than we think.
Huge thanks to Tuck Taylor for sharing his insights in that article. And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep striving for those peak performance moments, those flow states in whatever you do. Until next time.